What are you proposing here?
Well, I think we have to be very clear with what's happened here. In October 2020, the government received a report, the Halton Review, which indicated very clearly that the federal government needed to establish a surge capacity, a fit-for-purpose quarantine facility to cope with unexpected increases in positive COVID cases coming through quarantine. This is clearly the situation we have here. And so the decision by the Prime Minister and the government has been to leave Australians stranded overseas in life-threatening situations because they have failed to implement the recommendation of their own review in October last year to be ready for this very situation. It's unacceptable.
Isn't that already in place with Howard Springs with a capacity of up to 3,500?
Well, the difficulty is that facility is currently being used for normal quarantine. So its surge capacity has been used, I understand, and it has not been scaled up as recommended. So that really begs the question, when the Prime Minister talks about being on a war footing in respect to the rolling out the vaccine, is this what we would do in a war situation? Would we really leave stranded Australians overseas? I'm just absolutely aghast at this decision. I think it's undemocratic and I think it's racist.
So you think it should be another facility that has to be built from scratch somewhere else in Australia?
No, I think that the facility we currently have should be scaled up as a matter of urgency.
So Howard Springs?
Yes, and other facilities should be urgently built. This is a Commonwealth responsibility. Quarantine, the need to provide quarantine is a responsibility of the Commonwealth government. We have had 12 months of the COVID virus. I do not understand how the government is finding itself in a situation where our current facilities are simply inadequate. The CMO's letter recognises that our facilities are limited, so insufficient capacity, and that there is risk of leakage, which is a significant risk to the Australian population. They know the problems they have with their current system and they've failed to address it.
So what capacity would it have to go to in your view? What's your solution here?
Well, again, I am not the expert, but what I know is the Halton Review looked at this very question after Victoria's outbreak. The Halton Review looked at the question of need for surge capacity, and that simply hasn't been addressed. And there's a real question of why not? Why is it that the proportional acceptable risk is to leave Australians stranded overseas, not urgently repatriated, to assist in easing the numbers on our quarantine? Why is that the government's first response? Abandon Australians overseas rather than urgently repatriate them and increase our capacity? The question has to be asked, what have they been doing since October last year?
But I mean, you're talking about increases in cases in India. It's in excess of 300,000 new cases of coronavirus per day. And it's hit that again, so that's 12 days in a row now. You're seeing increases in the number of people who've got coronavirus who are in quarantine here at the moment too. That percentage is up 1,500%. So doesn't that give you pause?
No, because again, all the experts have been advising for over 12 months that this is a highly infectious virus, that it is mutating, that we need to be absolutely ready for all scenarios. We have a huge number of experts looking at those scenarios and ensuring that our response is adequate. Now, we know our number one defence has been quarantine to ensure it does not come into the country and that it is treated at that point. Why do we not yet have sufficient quarantine capacity?
Well, for the most part, though, hasn't hotel quarantine worked? I mean, we talked about 99% of cases, it's been successful. The leakage has been relatively small.
Sure. And now you get to a situation where our Chief Medical Officer is saying in advice to the government that because we have limited capacity and that the significant risk to the Australian population is the leakage that occurs from that system, the hotel quarantine, we have to leave Australians stranded in a life-threatening situation. My question is, do you think that is acceptable?
You referred to it as racist before. A lot of some people have said that. Some members of the Indian community here as well say it's not racist. But was it also racist to stop the flights from China last year?
Well, I have no issue with stopping flights because that's the question of preventing the influx of numbers. The question is, are we repatriating Australian citizens? Now, that is a vast distinction between what happened with the flights from China and what's happening with India. At no point with the flights from China did the Australian government announce that there would be a 5-year jail penalty for people trying to return from China.
Well, that
So, with
Biosecurity Act
respect,
was
it
in
is
place,
a
though,
very
wasn't it?
different. But that is a very different. They did not make the same order. The government did not make an order that Australian citizens returning from China would face a 5-year penalty and $66,000 fine. So, with respect, it is not the same reaction by the government. It is not a comparable situation.
The Prime Minister has said this morning that it looks as though repatriation flights will resume on the 15th of May. What's your reaction to that?
It's too late. It's too slow. People are in life-threatening situations now. And as you said before, the numbers have been escalating rapidly for days now. The situation in India has been dire for some time. Why? The government should have emergency evacuation flights ready very promptly. If this was a war footing, to say that we can't come and save you for 2 weeks at the best is, I would say, unacceptable.
Michael Slater says the PM's got blood on his hands. Do you agree with him?
I do. I think he is likely to. I think the consequences are incredibly dire, and this sets an incredibly dangerous precedent. This is undemocratic. It has not been debated in the parliament. We have not, as a parliament, agreed to this measure. And you are saying that at any other time, it's India today, but what is the next country where Australians will be left to fend for themselves and stranded? I think it is incredibly dangerous precedent.
Okay. Zali Steggall, appreciate your time this morning. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.